In a bland industry, how do you stand out? Let's talk about that today with Alexis Allen, an associate FA at the Teixeira Loughran Group of UBS and the host of Dreaming Big. Wait. Before we dive into the conversation with today's guest, welcome to The Real Finfluencers, a podcast born from our original video series spotlighting financial professionals who are using video to grow their business and their influence. Here's something you should know. Most of these guests aren't Idea Decanter clients. They've built their digital presence from the ground up, and they're here to share exactly how they did it. I'm your host, Laura Garfield, co-founder of Idea Decanter, and my goal is simple: help you discover strategies you can actually use, steal what works, get inspired, and find your own unique brand of finfluence. Now let's get into it. Alexis, thanks for being here today. I'm so glad we could make this happen.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to speaking with you more about dreaming big and about being an advisor.
The legend, the man, the myth, the legend, Mitch Slater, I think initially made our connection because he is the guy I know in charge at UBS of inspiring advisors to get themselves out there. And you are doing exactly that. Tell me about your show.
I would love to. First of all, I have Mitch to thank for being such a pioneer in this space and enabling so many advisors to have their platform in really whatever way they want to express their views, whether it's about the financial markets or having conversations with clients and individuals that are really change makers across industries. And so the background and inspiration behind Dreaming Big really was because it grew out of conversations I was already having with founders and operators in my network. My background is in the venture space and working in tech and working with a number of founders in different capacities, and realizing that so many of the conversations I was naturally having that would be really useful to other founders, either who are currently building or are inspired to build. And so I also noticed that entrepreneurs often feel, isolated in a very specific way, where they feel like they may be one of the few that are building in this space, and having lessons and learnings from founders who have come before them could be really helpful. And so it really has been a wonderful community where I've reached out to a number of individuals who I know and now have the opportunity to have a platform to share other stories for other individuals. And so naturally, given the private markets are an exciting ecosystem and an exciting space to be working with individuals in, it's really given me a fantastic platform to share those conversations more broadly and also interact with founders who I may not have otherwise.
Let me pull up one of your LinkedIn posts with one of your featured guests from Dreaming Big. Do you find when you go and ask these founders to do interviews, do you get a warm reception or are they ever hesitant?
For the most part, it's really warm. Entrepreneurs naturally wake up every day and are excited about what they're building. And so the opportunity to share more about their story is always a positive. And so, for instance, Lizzie Liebnay, who's an amazing founder, has this incredible background that actually really fostered what she's already built. And so the opportunity to have some sort of long forum opportunity to share more about her background, why she's building in the space that she's building in, the challenges and successes that she's had is really phenomenal. And what's really exciting is that a number of these founders have opportunities that they would love to have more marketing behind. And so whether it's a product launch or they're fundraising or they're thinking about exiting their business, this is a really great way for them to be able to share their story in a longer form differentiated way. So for the most part, they're really excited to talk about what they're building and excited to have it in a conversational format.
What have you discovered as a financial advisor in the interview space when you've got a guest and you're trying to pull the best story out of them? How do you prepare, and any techniques you would share with other advisors?
I think being an advisor, there's, the biggest part about it is building trust. And so building trust with your clients, building trust with your team. And so the same goes for this, which is building a level of trust with these entrepreneurs so that they're able to share with you some of the things that may not be as shiny and wonderful as they usually are talking about. And so having them open up and be vulnerable is something that I found to be the most interesting conversations come from that. And I could say the same goes for, when working with clients, which is really the depth that you have in the relationships come from your clients trusting you. And so I find a lot of those same techniques to come in the conversations that I have over the podcast. So it's about doing the research ahead of time, understanding where they're coming from and their backgrounds, and how that applies to what they want to do in the future. So I think there's a lot of interesting overlaps, and so much of it is just a natural curiosity that I've always had in this space and working with individuals, that it's been really fun to be able to do that through a podcast.
Let's talk about this particular post for your podcast. And it stuck out to me because though I love video, this particular post isn't technically a video, but it really is something that's going to get people engaged on LinkedIn because it's designed to click through and give you sort of a little flavor of what's happening in the episode. What are you finding works best for the different kinds of content you're posting on LinkedIn right now?
Number of ways to showcase events, conversations, and really amplify other people's stories. And I've found that the carousel works nicely for podcasts, that if you are, scrolling through your LinkedIn when you're commuting or, walking around, it's easier to click through than necessarily listen to something with sound. And so giving a mix of audio and visual has been helpful. And I think that the carousels work really nicely because there are some really punchy snippets that are able to be conveyed in a matter of seconds when you glance at this, versus listening to perhaps a long form video or a long form podcast. And so this was a fun way to showcase a couple of Margaret's amazing answers to some of the questions that I've asked her, and really be able to pull out the key themes rather than potentially listening to the whole podcast. So I think having a mix of them is really important. And that's why I've gone back and forth between audiograms and video, and also the carousel, which has worked really nicely to give people a snippet. And then ideally they'll click into the full conversation and podcast to listen to her whole story.
Let me have you take us under the hood of your production, because I think a lot of advisors see the technical side of producing content and think, oh, I don't even know where to begin. And you are using some very basic tools that most advisors would be familiar with to create this podcast, starting with recording it on Teams, right?
That's correct. Yes. I certainly have approached this, like many things in the world of marketing and advisory, as, a bit of a test, seeing whether this resonates with people, seeing whether people actually are interested in listening to another podcast. As someone who is a tremendous podcast listener, I've taken a lot of inspiration from a lot of the conversations that I've heard over time and tried to apply it to my own podcast, recognizing it's at a much smaller scale right now. But I would say the first is, yes, we record on Teams. So it's super approachable. We don't have to meet in person, very limited, technical devices outside of, we'll get on a Teams. I have bought my own, microphone from Amazon, and then I edit it myself. So we record on Teams. I edit it myself using Riverside, which is a helpful AI-driven overlay, but it has certainly helped speed up the process for me, which otherwise it was taking, several hours. This now takes a couple of hours. And it's all myself. I also have been receiving a lot of feedback from just, reaching out to certain people who I know have listened to it and tried to tweak it along the way. We're coming up on, the end of my first season, where a lot of those people were, yes, really exciting, where I knew all the individuals on the upfront. The first 10 were individuals in my network and that I knew well and were able to have a conversation. And the next 10 are from individuals who have reached out to me and who I've been connected to be featured on it. And so it's really an evolution and speaks to the fact that that test did work. And so I'm excited to think about producing at a potentially higher scale, maybe doing a couple of them in person in a studio. And so it's been a really worthwhile test, and one that is easily repeatable. I know that if I was able to learn the software, anyone can.
Well, that's a big boost. Maybe a hill or a bridge too far for some advisors, but I am impressed with you embracing the technology and making it happen yourself. Let me ask you the ROI question because this comes up all the time with FAs thinking about, is this just a whole nother side gig that I'm having to create for myself, or is this going to positively impact my business? What has been your experience?
I think generally when I thought about what I would qualify as success, it really was never going to be down to the download numbers or, the number of stars or reviews. It was really going to come down to, was I getting any sort of inbound based on what I was putting out there? And that can come from a founder who said, "Hey, I listened to, Natalie White's story about developing Moolah kicks, and it was really helpful hearing how she went after a manufacturer. I actually really need to think about doing that." Or I heard Lizzie's story about fundraising, and that's something that I really need to get better at. That's really where I find, okay, great signal. People are hearing this, people are resonating with it, people have questions. They want to come to me about, talking about some other questions. That I have found to be a strong signal of success. And for me, that's really where the ROI comes down to. Am I positively adding value to the ecosystem that I am building in and attracting clients from? Am I being something that is seen as a tool or a resource for information that I know Alexis is a person that I want to speak to about a variety of topics, including ones that came up in a conversation in a podcast that I listened to. So I think the metrics that really matter to me are relational, not necessarily algorithmic.
Yeah, I think we can get caught up in the vanity metrics and not really get to the business case of creating the content. But what about new clients? Do you feel like the Dreaming Big podcast has actually moved the needle for your business?
Yes, I can confidently say that it has developed a new business, which I feel really great about. And candidly, a lot of it is because these conversations, while I was having naturally originally, the conversations that we have before and after the actual recording is also where a lot of the depth comes into play, which is we've now talked about their business. They're excited to share more broadly. And then I get to ask them about themselves and how they're managing their own, their back office, their financial planning. And a lot of the time they say, "I'm really busy building my own business. I don't have time for that." And so we can really dive in a little bit deeper then. And for a lot of it, again, given that the original cohort was individuals that I knew, the next cohort are individuals that are potentially new to me and that I may not have a reason to reach out to them otherwise. And so it's been a really wonderful opportunity to drive new business and to be a really helpful resource kind of across the board, both in helping them market, but also in helping support them from a back end.
Yeah, it's definitely a non-salesy way to reach out and start a conversation with someone that you've never spoken with, for sure. I had a note that 3 prospects reached out to you on LinkedIn and became clients. Is is that serious?
Yes. Yes, it is. LinkedIn has been a pretty phenomenal driver of business for me. I think really what comes down to it is consistency and authenticity. The consistency in posting on a regular basis has made me top of mind for a number of people throughout the time that I have been part of the Teixeira Loughran group. And the fact that I usually am not posting necessarily about the markets, but talking about the events that I'm attending, the podcasts that I'm producing, and stories about others and really amplifying what they're doing across the dimensions of entrepreneurship, successful females that are building, and philanthropy. That's been a really helpful driver in helping attract clients that will resonate with my focus areas and ideally support them in whatever they're doing in their dreams.
Any last tips you'd give advisors out there listening who are interested in following in your well-heeled footsteps?
I would say find things that genuinely resonate with the prospects that you're trying to attract and the clients that you have. For me, this was an easy segue considering I came from the world of venture, I came from working at startups and advising and investing in them. And so naturally, these conversations were already happening. And so being able to do that at scale has been really wonderful and helpful. And so I would urge anyone who's thinking about this to consider, what are the conversations they are already having? What are the events that they're already attending? Where is their background unique that they're able to carve out a space that will attract to a broader audience outside of just the clients that they already have when they're thinking about developing new business?
Great advice, Alexis. And remember, if Alexis can do it, you can do it too. And if you need help building authority and growing your practice with video, that's what we do at Idea Decanter. Oh, one more thing. If you're not already part of Idea Decanter's Real Finfluencer community, now is your chance to join us. Head to ideadecanter.com/join, and you'll be in. You'll get early access to advisor video tips, invites to exclusive events, and behind-the-scenes insights that you won't find on Google or even on ChatGPT. Whether you're just video curious or already knee-deep in content creation, this is the place to grow your influence with video. Don't miss out. And thanks so much for listening to The Real Finfluencers.